Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening in from or watching in from. I'm Justin Skizik, founder of Crown and Key and host of the Rise Up podcast. I am here with Liza Rifkin. She is the CEO, founder, and chief artisan at Liza Michelle Jewelry, based out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Mhm.
And I am really excited to be sharing some time with you today. So, welcome to the Rise Up podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I always like to dive in with kind of like 30,000 foot view, just kind of get everyone the lay of the land of like who you are, what you do,
Sure.
and all of that. I would like you to kind of start from the beginning, if you wouldn't mind. Not like,
Yeah.
hey, I was born in, 1984 and, whatever on a sunny day. But, how did you get into making jewelry? How did you get into starting your own brand? What was your journey kind of into what you do now?
Yeah, I fell in love with making jewelry in high school, actually. I had a really great public school education and learned jewelry making in high school and was hooked. So I got a bachelor's in fine arts from Cleveland Institute of Art in jewelry and metalsmithing. And that's sort of where the craft comes from. And I worked as a bench jeweler for a local jewelry company for a couple years out of college and learned very quickly that um, employee life isn't necessarily cut out for me.
That's okay.
Yeah, I was really driven to make my own work and found that learning the way that a commercial studio worked really inspired me to do it for myself. And so I have been running Liza Michelle Jewelry since 2013, and it has sort of evolved and pivoted a million different ways over the years, but that's sort of the broad strokes of how I got started, was wanting to continue my art practice and make work, and learning that carving my own niche into the market was sort of the best route for me.
Yeah. So when you started, did you
Yeah.
have a particular style, or were you just kind of just diving in and making whatever, and then it kind of evolved into your style, or did you have an idea what you wanted to do?
Gosh, I was all over the place. I think I was like a very classic art school student where everything inspired me. I wanted to explore sort of every way of making, different styles, different iterations. I definitely started as more of a fine artist. And so a lot of the work that I was making was very conceptual in college and soon thereafter. And then I sort of got my first taste of making actual money from production jewelry, trying to make extra money one summer working as a studio assistant in Tennessee at a craft school. And so I think I tried on a lot of different styles, sort of trying to figure out how to marry my very conceptual work with something that was a little bit more commercial, more sellable from a production standpoint. And then throughout the year, the early years of my career was sort of just exploring different ways of making and different styles of jewelry to sort of figure out where I found that sweet spot of still being excited by the craft, but making something that people actually wanted to buy.
Yeah.
And so, I had the benefit of investing really early in my studio. And so I controlled pretty much every aspect of production, from wax working to casting to finishing, stone setting. And so it allowed a lot of play and a lot of exploration in sort of what worked and what didn't. And so over the years, it's been just a evolution of that art practice in figuring out what's still exciting, what's selling, what feels sort of authentic to what I'm trying to communicate. And then more so recently with my fine jewelry line, the bridal engagement rings is very much influenced by my clients. I do so much custom work these days that sort of collaborative effort with clients has become a great source of inspiration for me, and has allowed me to really push sort of what my style looks like by bringing in different collaborators every week, depending on who my clients are.
So if somebody's never seen your work before, how would you describe your style now? I mean, is there a particular materials that you use that defines who you are, or is it like the shape of things or stones that you use?
I would say that like the crux of the brand, the ethos that I sort of carry through everything that I make, whether it's bridal jewelry, everyday wearable jewelry, is a sense of like effortlessness, comfort, durability with materials that are as ethically sourced as possible in an ever fluctuating industry. I would say that like a strong line carried throughout, and then something that pieces that are like really unique, especially with the bridal industry sort of feeling like one size fits all. I work with a lot of clients and I have a lot of customers that are looking for something that feels different. And so we incorporate a lot of different gemstones into what we make. I'm constantly looking for either antique diamonds or different colored diamonds, or working directly with mines in Montana to source different colored sapphires for these pieces. So it's really just sort of seeking out those materials, the gemstones specifically for like the bridal pieces, to let that sort of sing and then bring it together in a piece that feels really everyday wearable, comfortable. I always ask my clients, like, how do you want to move through the day? How do you want this piece to live with you? And so that's sort of the crux of what I'm getting at. And so all of these pieces sort of speak to that effortlessness. I want this to be a piece that, you know, you could pass down for generations, and it will feel still really durable and really comfortable.
So this is something I've talked with a few different people in the jewelry industry so far, and you're the first to really talk about leading
Mhm.
off with comfort.
Yeah.
Can you describe to me, like, when you say that, and then how do you so what do you mean by that? And then how do you work with your clients to make sure that it is comfortable?
Well, I think like what's unique about jewelry, and it also transcends to clothing, obviously, it's anything worn on the body. You have to sort of consider how it's going to move with somebody. I work a lot mostly with rings when it comes to custom work. And so the first question I ask people is like, what do you do all day? What do you do with your hands? How do you want this piece to live with you? Do you want a ride or die piece where you don't ever have to think about taking it off? Are you someone that's more considered where you will like put it on in the little ring dish while you're doing the dishes or gardening or whatever that is? And so I lead with comfort because this has to be a piece, especially if you're investing a certain amount of money into it, that you feel comfortable wearing, both from a standpoint that it's durable. You know that you can wear it doing certain activities and you're not going to have to worry about a stone flying out or it getting caught on something. To how does it feel on your body? You know, if you're someone who, I work with a lot of people in healthcare, Cleveland's a big healthcare city. And so, you know, if you're taking gloves on and off all day or washing your hands a million times, you don't want a ring that sits really high. And so it's all these sort of considerations from a custom standpoint where I interview people and sort of ask them, like, what's your day to day like? And how do you want this piece to interact with you?
Mm.
When it comes to my everyday line that I have available all the time, that sort of ethos and those answers that I get from those people bleed through into those. So, you know, we have bold earrings, but they're not going to be super heavy.
You're like
There's going to be,
sitting there, you're like your
yeah,
head's off to the side.
you're not leaning over. You know, we're gonna make sure that our chains are good and durable. And so if your baby's pulling on it or your dog jumps up on you, it's not gonna break. Or,
Yeah.
you know, these things where it feels comfortable, you feel comfortable in it, and it still looks incredible. The design is there, the style is there, but it's not something that you're going to have to worry about. We don't work with like plated metals. So you don't have to worry about things wearing off. It's all solid sterling or gold, so it feels built to last.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I've always
Yeah.
just, like, wondered about that. What is your source of inspiration? So when a client comes to you and says, "Hey, I have a wedding ring I would like to have you make," or you're designing a
Mhm.
new piece of jewelry, like, what is that the origin?
Sure. I
Hopefully, I'm making sense
approach,
to my question.
yeah, you are for sure.
Okay.
I approach custom work and sort of my like ready to wear lines pretty differently. With clients, I have sort of perfected my ability to pull and ask questions of my clients. And often feels very unrelated to them, but and we sort of just work through iterations in that sense. You know, sitting down with clients, it's very conversational. How do they want this ring to make them feel? What type of impact? That sort of thing. And so that client work is very conversational, interview based. And then with my everyday line, it is very material driven. And so typically when I sit down to design a new collection, you know, I'll have inspiration from travels or something that's just been stuck in my mind. And it's never a sort of through line about, you know, what that subject is. And I'll just sit down on my bench and start making things and see what works and what doesn't and what goes together. And so my process with that is very iterative. It's a lot of play with material and seeing like what pieces come together. I'm not a big sketcher in that realm. I sketch a ton for clients. And so when it comes to sort of my art practice with my collections, I really just play.
You just get in there like a sandbox. You're just in there like
Yep.
playing around. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah,
So describe the type of clients who find you and or who most resonate with your work. Like how do
sure.
they find you? Like kind of describe to me the people you work with typically.
I am incredibly fortunate. So many of my clients are word of mouth at this point. I joke that I've worked my way through like hospital units because like one coworker will get something
Yeah.
and then they'll tell their coworker about me. So I would say it's largely word of mouth. We use a lot of Instagram and social media marketing that that really helps us get new clients. And then in terms of sort of the people that really resonate with us and work with us most frequently, it tends to be just people that are looking to step outside of that very commercial jewelry experience. And so typically they've gone into a jewelry store and had a less than wonderful experience where they've had a salesperson sort of tell them what they want and sort of direct them towards something that maybe it's not necessarily what they're looking for. You know, you go into most commercial jewelry stores and you're faced with like a sea of diamonds and it's all very uniform. And so most of our clients are looking for something a lot more unique, a more personalized experience, something where they can sort of drive the boat in terms of design and sourcing of materials and know exactly what they're getting, where it's coming from, who's making it, and have more control in that process.
Okay. So do you find most of your clients, you said word of mouth, are they within, the Cleveland area? Or do you have people from France that reach out to you and like, hey, I need
Sure.
you to help me do a wedding ring or, a piece? Some people are
They're
just very
largely,
hyper localized and some are,
yeah,
a little bit more
we
broad.
tend to be pretty hyper regional. I would say like the greater Cleveland area is our largest pool of clients. I do have a lot of clients that are out of state as well. And it's typically because it's someone that's moved out of state and continues to be a client for different milestones. I have a meeting next week with a woman who I made her engagement ring. They got married in Cleveland. They now live out west and they just had their first baby. And so I'm making a piece for them. So
Okay.
I would say it's pretty hyper local at this point. And then branching out as clients move and
Okay.
word of mouth and that sort of thing.
So how long does it take you to make a custom piece? Like if somebody was to come contact you, if I was to say, hey, Liza, I'd like you to help me make a whatever ring. Like what's the timeline for that? So if somebody does reach out to you, they need to know like, oh yeah, you're looking at a couple months or a year out or like I
Sure.
don't know like what your timeline is.
Yeah. So our typical timeline for custom work is anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks. Typically, the longest part of the process is design and stone sourcing. So if we're looking for like a unicorn stone, working through different design iterations, that tends to be the longest part of the process.
Okay. So kind of getting back to the business side of things, because I would like to kind of dive into that a little bit, is what do you feel sets you apart from other maybe jewelry makers or are there other jewelry makers like yourself? I mean, of course there's jewelry shops. I'm
Mhm.
talking about like a direct competitor of yours in the area. Are there other people like yourself? And then if so, like how do you set yourself apart from them?
Sure. Yeah, there's definitely a few independent jewelers in Cleveland. We've got a few different universities that are kicking out great talent. And so there's definitely competition in that realm. I think what sets me apart is that I've been doing this for so long. And I have a level of expertise and sort of word of mouth reputation that a lot of people know what they're going to get and the experience they're going to have when they come to LMJ. I also am a firm believer that rising tide raises all ships. And so I think that if there is a more level playing field in terms of sort of similarly scoped jewelers in the area, it brings the whole clientele base up and it sort of gives them the expectation for quality and price point that makes everyone successful. No one's ever going to be able to replicate my style. And so if there's more people acclimated to this level of quality, I think it only serves to benefit everybody.
It's interesting you bring that up because I was just talking with a good friend of mine earlier in my professional career. I was a graphic designer in the San Diego design community. I worked at a design studio that was very reputable.
Mhm.
There were other great agencies in the area, but it wasn't like this, go stab somebody in the back, to get more work. You're 100% right it that competition, everyone was friendly with one another, which
Mhm.
made the community special in a way.
Yeah.
But also you're competitive, of course, you're trying to get work, but there's so much work to go around. It's
Mhm.
okay
Yeah.
that, work goes to one agency versus the other, or in your case, one jeweler versus another independent jeweler. The people are still winning in the end, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So it's a great point of view that you bring up. And to be honest with you, I feel very grateful of that
Yeah.
because it does make you level up. It does
Mhm.
make you be better at your craft and serve your clients better and just do the best that you can, we could
Yeah.
easily, if you dominate everything, you could just like rest on your laurels and just be like,
Exactly. Yeah. I always
okay.
say those challenges always have allowed me to pivot and
Yeah.
evolve. And it's those moments that I'm most grateful for, if anything has felt competitive. But yeah, I just think it makes for a better community.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah. We can all learn from one another. So,
absolutely.
what kind of major shifts are you seeing in the jewelry industry right now? I mean, I know that I've heard, the rumblings of, lab grown versus, all of that. I'm curious to see what your stance is on that. Any other shifts that you're seeing in the industry? Would love to
Sure.
get your
Yeah.
insight on that.
Lots of thoughts. Yeah, I would say like lab diamonds are probably one of the larger shakeups right now within the industry. And I would say the other side of it is gold pricing. Those are the two big ones right now. Lab diamonds, we work with them here. I think they're a great option for folks. I think there's a big push from the powers that be to sort of keep singing the praises of natural diamonds. And I think they definitely have their place and they're a great option. I find that lab diamonds are beautiful. They're a great cost effective option. I have a lot of clients that are looking for something that's not necessarily earth mined. They like the process of something being man-made. There's sort of sustainable implications with it, although there are still some. And so, I think there's pros and cons to both, and everyone gets to pick their values on that and decide for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
with gold, like what's driving up the gold pieces or pricing?
So with gold right now, it is historically high. And it's largely just due to a weakened dollar, sort of global economic instability. And so you see that typically with any sort of like pre-recession, recession, that gold will go up. I remember in 2012, gold skyrocketed and everyone panicked and then it settled down. Hopefully it settles down. I'm definitely sensing some sort of acclimating that's happening with the price of gold. I think people are just trying to get used to a new normal with it.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to dive into the political landscape on
Sure.
this
Fair.
interview, but I'm curious, like, so when gold does fluctuate like that, um, obviously that hits your bottom line, like how you're, as an artisan that you're creating pieces. So when gold is at a really high point, it at some point it's going to be unsustainable for a client. As a businesswoman, how are you kind of incorporating those fluctuations into your business model?
Yeah. It's tricky. It's delicate. I definitely am sensitive to the fact that, the prices definitely will and have priced people out. And so, we sort of hedge our bets with, do we lower our margins a little bit to help people out? I've definitely done some wedding bands in 10 carat. There's definitely some options there to mitigate cost for people who are committed to working with me and getting the design that they're looking for. Typically, the way that I approach budgeting with anybody pre skyrocketed gold prices and now is to sort of ask them, what's the dream ring? What's the budget? And I see where that Venn diagram overlaps.
Hmm.
And so pricing is such a huge part of what I do, and it's customized really to every project. And so I'm tied to the fact that gold costs what it costs and it changes, every day. And so there's not a ton of wiggle room there, but I work really hard to try and figure out like where is there room elsewhere so that we can make something work for somebody. And then within the sort of ready to wear lines, we're exploring sterling silver, we're broadening the product offerings so that we're not going to hit everybody's budget, but we try and get close.
Yeah. So with your kind of ready to wear lines and the pieces you have in those collections, what kind of like what's an average cost of a piece? Like I know it's going to be not one price. It's going to be tiered and it's going to be all over the place. But like
Sure.
if somebody came to you and like came to your website and was looking like what's the average cost there, and then what's an average cost of a custom piece as well?
Sure.
Just curious.
Our like in sterling silver, our ready to wear pieces sort of range from 200 to $400. And that tends to fluctuate with if there's stones, sort of how involved the piece is, that sort of thing. And then with custom work, our current minimums are, most of our engagement rings start at 4,500. Custom pendants and simple pieces like that are usually anywhere from like 2,500 to 4,000. And things sort of change really rapidly depending on what type of stone someone's looking for, and how involved the piece is with stone
Yeah.
setting and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I know it's a hard question to answer because it's like, well, it's not just you're not just selling a pair of shoes. Like the shoes are
Right.
$200 or something like that. I get that. I was just curious. So if somebody had kind of that when they're checking you out, they have like
Yeah.
a a ballpark range, and to be fair, like a custom piece, like that's pretty in line with what you'd be paying at a jewelry store anyway.
Hmm.
If and you get what you want. So, I mean, of course, the sky's the limit. You want a 20
Sure.
karat diamond, that's what it is. I mean, it's like, you
Right.
know, you want
Yeah.
everything to be rose gold. It's going to be
Yeah.
expensive. So, I never really thought about that.
Hmm.
So that's an interesting. So if you're curious, if you're listening to this, you're curious about that, Liza's your lady.
Check us out.
Okay. What part of your business right now, like as you're growing LMJ, what's getting your most attention these days? Are you like in the building stage? Are you scaling? Are you kind of refining? Are you like where are you at in your
Sure.
brand?
Um, that is a good question. I think, it's funny, 12, 13 years in, like, I think I go through those stages every few years. I think with the sort of pivoting and evolution of the brand, there's always a little bit of each happening. I would say right now I'm more so refining. We moved into a new studio this year, and we're just sort of fine tuning our systems and processes to sort of come into this more luxury space, and feel sort of more aligned with what we've been offering.
So how big is your team? Is it just you or do you have like a small team with you? Like what's your internal?
It's me, and I have one other bench jeweler, and then I have a marketing person.
Cool. Yeah, the business cycle as being an entrepreneur, it's yeah, you're going to be up and down, backwards, forwards. You're sometimes you're building, sometimes you're scaling, sometimes you're refining, sometimes you're, I understand that evolution. That's just the nature of the business.
Yeah.
So how are you using, AI is kind of a big thing this year. Like in your marketing, in your marketing efforts, are you using AI or leveraging it at all or adverse to it?
Um,
Or what's your thoughts on it?
we're not using it at this point. I have worked really hard. I have an incredible marketing manager on sort of refining our brand tone and voice and sort of how we talk with our clients. And she does an incredible job. And so I think right now for us, most of our marketing is so conversational that like bringing AI into it doesn't feel like an authentic voice for us. I think there's definitely some avenues that it could be helpful. It's not something that we've explored at this point, though.
Yeah. And what areas do you think would be helpful for your jewelry business or the jewelry as a whole?
I think that there are ways that it can be incorporated to sort of generate conversation around, figuring out different topics that we would want to explore with people and marketing. Again, it's hard for me to say because I don't use it that often,
That's
like
okay.
how
Yeah.
it
I mean,
how
we're
it
just
could
curious. Yeah.
be super helpful. Yeah, I don't know. I
Okay.
am interested to see, what could happen with it.
All right. So what are some of the like biggest client wins you've had or exciting business wins you've had so far this year um or even the last year?
I would say a big business win for us would be the new studio. I think sort of finally landing in a space that feels the most aligned with sort of our ethos and my, wanting to sort of level up into a more like luxury space. Cleveland is rife with industrial buildings that have been turned into studios. And so they're fun and great. Um, it and that's where we were before. And so we've sort of stepped into a more like office style building that feels just a little bit more refined. And so that it's allowed us to sort of bring photography into this back into the studio and sort of bring everything in house. And it just feels better aligned with sort of what we're offering. We can start to have more events in house
Yeah. Any client wins?
all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's not just one. You're like, I've had one happy client in the last year. Like, I get that. But like, is there a particular story that really comes to mind, like top of mind, that you're like, hey, you don't have to
Yeah,
divulge the person's
sure.
details,
Yeah.
but
You
just
know,
like, they came to you and you like helped them do XYZ or whatever. I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
I work with a lot of folks in the LGBTQ community. I find that the wedding industry can be pretty hetero leaning with our offerings. And so I had clients this year that came to me that were looking for engagement rings and wedding bands for themselves. And had sort of just been left feeling like, every time they looked at a venue or every time they talked with other wedding vendors, they were asked, "Oh, are you best friends? Is this your friend?" And it's like, "No, we're a couple." And so I think the biggest wins for me is when I get to meet people where they are and provide them with an experience that validates who they are and celebrates their love. And so that's one that in particular really sticks out for me because of how joyful they were and how successful it was and how happy they are now sort of having these pieces that commemorate such an incredible moment for them and not having any feelings of like ick associated
Yeah.
with it.
Judgment or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
we had to buy our ring from somebody who didn't really, understand who we were. So
Right.
that's awesome. So what kind of like kind of getting into the business, like how you're kind of growing the business and where your what your hopes and dreams are with it. I'll get there in a minute, but what kind of marketing strategies or channels are working really well for you? And then on the flip side, what are some channels that you think you would find very valuable you just haven't tapped into yet?
Sure. Social media has been really great for us. Our marketing strategy is one of storytelling. We're always telling stories of our clients and telling stories of how we make what we do and why we do it. And so social media has been really strong for us in being a platform to tell those stories. I think, our challenge right now is to sort of spread that outside of the Cleveland area and sort of reach more people in a more universal way. And so, sort of working collaboratively to figure out what those avenues are and how to leverage them.
What's your biggest? You have IG right now, Instagram?
Mhm,
Are you on? Is that that's your main
mhm.
one? Okay, okay. I'll make sure I tag that, by the way, so you
Thank
guys
you.
can check that out. So what is the kind of the next evolution of LMJ? I'm talking about the brand itself. Like,
Mhm.
do you see an opportunity to bring in different lines? Are you looking at like what's kind of sparking your interest as you look
Sure.
forward?
I would say the biggest thing that is exciting me right now is sort of putting my customers and clients more in the driver's seat. So the custom work that I offer is amazing and fulfilling, but it's definitely like me directed. And so I think sort of broadening our reach, we have a great bridal line available on the website that's sort of designed to order. And so just fleshing that out a little bit more and advertising that to people so that they feel like they're getting something unique and sort of customized to them, but it takes that complete one-on-one interaction out of it a little bit just so that it's a little bit more sustainable. And we're also working on, I'm really excited, we're working on a strategic partnership right now with our gem vendor to have their diamonds and sapphires available for purchase on our website directly. And so that gives our clients the opportunity to just shop directly for the stone they want to use in a piece. And it would then automatically fire the custom process. And so it's just sort of like automating and creating ways that empower our clients to take the reins a little bit more, which in turn becomes a little bit more sustainable for us in terms of face time.
Yeah. Oh, there's only so much of you that
Right.
can go around each day, right? I mean, you
It's
have to
true.
keep doing the work, but you also have to be able to interact with clients, and that's the
Right.
balance that you're in as, an entrepreneur is you're juggling the hats, right? You got to go
All of
create,
them.
you know? So would it kind of expanding your team also kind of play into that too? Like, because the more
Absolutely.
bench workers that you have, right? And I
Right.
imagine finding the right bench worker is going to be a challenge in itself. But that would kind of free you up to be the
Totally.
creative vision, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I love asking this question. I have a couple ones that I really like asking. If you can wave a magic wand, like a metaphorical magic wand, and fix one thing in your business, what would that be?
Fix one thing. That's tough. I don't know. And that's not to say that it's a well-oiled, perfect machine over here. I think our biggest challenge is sort of driving sales through marketing in that reign. So maybe the magic wand is just, um, you know, driving more people to the website. But honestly, um, I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's like some people have a really
It's tricky.
like a
I
super quick question answer, and some people are like
Yeah.
yourself. You're like, well, I haven't really thought about that.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a I think it's just a good question. Somebody asked me that a while back, and I was like, that's a really good question. It's like I should probably incorporate that in my interview. So
Yeah.
because it helps you kind of think about,
Yeah, what's that?
as a I use this metaphor all the time when I work with my clients is like, you can't read the label from inside the jar.
Mm.
You're, you know, it's just the journey of entrepreneurship. You're in it. You're dealing with clients. You have vendor issues. You have like all these things that you're
Mhm.
juggling and bouncing all the time and, keeping things moving forward. And then you have a life on top of that, So it sometimes it's hard to get like I could probably fix this in my business. That would be really helpful if I could,
Sure.
like
Yeah.
I'm right with you. Like if I had a clone of me, that would be great.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
Two of
I
me would
don't.
be incredible.
Yeah,
Let's
I
go with
don't have a
that.
clone of me, but when somebody asked me that question, it got me thinking and I was like, okay, yeah, in order for me to kind of do what I want to do and focus on that, I'm going to need to fix certain things to keep
Sure.
it moving forward. And it could
Yeah.
be really small things. It doesn't need to be this massive,
Right.
deal. But okay. Appreciate you honestly answering the question.
Yeah. It's a tough one. I'll have to think about that. I'll get back to
Okay.
you.
All right. We'll talk about that later. 2.0 interview.
Right.
So here's another one. This is a little bit more reflective. If you could look back at, your younger self
Mm.
and give your younger self one piece of business advice, what would that be?
Probably to write more things down sooner.
Okay.
Systems.
Systems. Okay.
Yeah, honestly, I'm very proud of my younger entrepreneurial self. I think um, set a really good foundation, but I would say write down more systems earlier. That's a good one. It's the boring answer, but
It's a
it's
boring answer.
useful.
But it's very useful, like systems, putting those things in place. Like I'm right with you. I wish I would have done the same thing.
Yep.
Because you're like, oh, I could just turn this over to somebody. Here you go. Here's the
It's like
system. This is how you do
the
it.
unsexy advice you don't want to
Yeah.
hear, but it will serve
Yeah.
you for years to come.
But it's straightforward and it's very applicable. So I appreciate you answering that. Okay. So I have a couple more questions for you. And the second to last question I have for you, unless you spark something else for me, is if somebody listening to this,
Hmm.
hearing your story, hearing what you've been through, what you do, your craftsmanship, everything, like what is the one thing you hope somebody walks away with after hearing your story?
I think the biggest thing for me would be that they feel empowered to sort of tell their own story and move forward sort of authentically, whether that's pursuing a business or treating themselves to jewelry. I think the crux of what I believe in and why I do what I do is empowering people to you know do what they want and do it as out loud and authentically as possible and to tell their story. And so whether that's by creating a business or creating a piece of jewelry or getting a piece of jewelry,
Mm,
I think that's the biggest thing for me.
yeah. It all begins with a yes, right? We
Hmm.
don't have all the answers ahead of time.
Yeah.
It's just the way that it is.
Hmm.
I wish we did,
Yeah.
but we don't.
We
So,
don't.
you know, but it all
Yeah.
begins with a yes, right?
Yeah.
That's
I
how
think just
you,
being open
yeah,
to letting life happen and
yeah.
engaging with it.
That's a great answer. So this is the last question is more of a fun one.
Okay.
Is what what do you got going on right now? Is there anything particular you'd like to promote or highlight during this episode? Of course,
Sure.
we're gonna like people get to know or go to your website, which is com. It's Lizamichelle jewelry.com. And I'll put a link around this, but if you're listening to that, that's where you can find her or just Google it. But what do you got going on in your world that you want to promote? Event coming up? You have a promo coming up? Anything particular?
Yeah, we've got a lot going on. I have a new collection launching in September, and we're relaunching our core collection, which is our core offering of everyday wearable pieces. And so it's kind of a 2-for-1 launch in September, along with our new website with our partnership with our gem vendor. So it's a big fall we're heading into with lots
Exciting.
of new fun things launching on the website.
Perfect. And perfect timing for the holidays.
It is.
Yes. Holidays are coming up. Believe it or
They
not,
are.
comes the same
Faster than
time
you
every year.
think. Yep.
So you can start placing your orders in now, which would be really
Yeah,
great. Yes. So, Liza, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I really do appreciate your time.
my
Really
pleasure.
appreciate your craftsmanship and your heart and your vision to create, custom and wearable pieces that are comfortable and amazing and beautiful. You should definitely check out her stuff, Liza Michelle Jewelry.com. and look her up on IG too. As well, I'll post all that below this video. It's on YouTube, it's Spotify, and all the fun stuff. So, um, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been fun.
All right, have a great rest of your day, and I guess we'll see each other down the line.
Sounds good.